It's Monday, November 18th, 2013. I'm Jerry Principe.
And I'm Trey Comstock. Put in your final orders because this is Tech's Last Call, episode 50. Your last call for Tech News of the Week. Tonight, Jimmy is mostly playing Killzone, Sydney is mostly asleep, and I am mostly unimpressed. But we start tonight with our main topic, which is the launch of the PlayStation 4. Yes, at 12:01 on Friday, November 15th, 2013, the console war truly began in grand fashion with the actual launch of the PlayStation 4. This had been long anticipated. We have been hoping for this date for many years and had hotly anticipated it, since the spring when Sony announced there would be a new PlayStation, oddly enough named the PS4.
Nobody saw that coming.
Yeah, very clever naming convention they have going. So we had our hot little hands on it at 12:01 or very close to it.
Speak for yourself, baby hands, man.
Yeah. On Friday, and we live streamed about it over on twitch.tv for about 5 hours. Some point that stream will get posted to the website, and y'all can watch it if you really want to.
Watch us lose our ever-loving minds.
We lose our ever-loving minds. It's pretty funny. But we also have, some prescient, on-topic analysis in between the bad jokes and swearing. And watch me slowly battle with the stream itself. There's
a lot of swearing. I will agree with that.
There's a lot of swearing. So we've, we have had hands-on with PS4 extended for a extended time period. Jimmy more than I, because he's the one who actually has the device. So Jimmy,
it's over yonder.
What's your impression of the PS4 up to this point?
Well, it's better than the PS3, which should not surprise anyone. No, okay.
Better in what way?
Okay, so hardware. No, I meant that to be kind of a pointless statement. I mean, it's new. It's better in that you can tell that they've thought about how they want to do this menu structure. I don't know if they've succeeded at doing it well, but they've changed how the menu is structured. I didn't have the old iCamera. However, I have played around with Kinect before. And this seems to work very similar. I have the iCamera. It seems to work very similarly to Kinect, and I can tell it to turn itself off, and it'll use the Kinect to recognize. Actually, it's very interesting. So if you have two people, so here's a PlayStation controller. It's on, as you can see, because of the blue light.
Mm-hmm. That means you're player one.
Yeah, that means I'm player one. So when I turn on the PlayStation, it'll go, okay, it'll look for the blue light. So like, let's say that you and your friend are sitting next to each other on the couch. It'll go, oh, your face goes with the blue light. So, Jimmy is player one, and then Trey, who picked a very interesting,
vaguely inappropriate,
somewhat inappropriate avatar, it would be red, and he would log in as player two. You have to set up your face with it. It doesn't automatically do that. But yeah, so that's nice. Unfortunately, it thinks that I am both Trey and myself on my machine.
Yeah, we screwed that up.
For the life of me, I cannot figure out how to once you've registered a PSN account with the PlayStation, it does not want to forget it. It will not forget it. Or so it seems. I think I'm going to have to factory reset the damn thing to make it forget it.
Yeah, no, we messed that up bad.
I really enjoyed Resogun, the PSN, what was supposed to be Drive Club. I've played more of that than I have of either AC4 or Killzone, because it satisfies that, like, oh, I need, half an hour of entertainment. And AC4, there's so much story. I know I'm going to want to devote at least 2, 3, maybe even 8 hours to the game. And Killzone, I've been trying to get into it. I have not played a lot of first-person shooters recently, and so getting used to it again is taking longer than it should, realistically.
But in terms of looking at the hardware, So graphics,
Well, and
right?
the controller I think is really the biggest
Yeah,
thing
yeah,
for me,
yeah, yeah.
hardware wise. Like the triggers work a lot better. It's much more comfortable to hold. The
Yeah, it
analog
feels more
sticks,
sturdy too.
yeah, the analog sticks work a lot better because they have the ridge, as we've discussed on previous episode. And the only Killzone uses the touchpad on it,
Okay.
and it's kind of the implementation makes sense in Killzone. It adds one more layer of control, but it seems kind of like they needed an excuse to use it. I found the speaker integrated into the controller to be very interesting, and the light is nice for being able to easily distinguish between player one and player two. Because on the old controllers, you'd have just a little dot, and from far away, you'd be like, I can't tell which one that is.
Yeah.
So,
So, I mean, you talk about the controller being the biggest difference. To me, if the controller is the biggest, change that you're positive on, you could have done that without changing generations. So,
I'd agree with you.
because I mean, there's nothing beyond maybe the light. There's nothing actually happening in that controller that couldn't have been done with an upgraded PS3 controller.
Right. Well,
Um,
and you can hardwire this into the PS3 and
right.
in most cases play with it. So,
Right, but again, I mean, I guess technically the PS3 wouldn't have support for the touchpad, but that could be done with a firmware update. Um,
right.
so there's no, as far as I understand, there's no technical limitation that would limit that from being fully operational on a PS3, assuming you just installed the same wireless technology, which I think is just Bluetooth on the PS3.
I know it's Bluetooth on this as well.
Okay, so I mean, again, it's good that the controller is a lot better. Like, good on Sony for recognizing where they had a limitation and doing something with that. But, okay, so this thing costs $400, $460 if you include the PlayStation camera, and that's before you own a single game.
Plus another $60 for another controller,
For another
plus another
controller,
$60 for another game.
game.
Speaking of which, I really need to return Knack.
Yeah,
Man.
which is bloody odd. We'll talk about that when we get to the game review segment. But so we were online with this thing for 4.5 hours, and I only saw one game that I could recognizably say this looks better than my Xbox 360.
Which game was that?
That was Killzone.
Yeah, I mean, Killzone looks very pretty.
It's doing things with lighting that I haven't seen on current gen, but beyond the lighting in Killzone, I
think AC4 looks worse.
Yeah,
Comparing AC4, I mean, you can tell that there is more textural detail, but in the case of AC4, that's actually bad.
Yeah, and why go if you're interested, really do go back and watch our live stream, because we spent a lot of time going back and forth between the PS3 and the PS4 versions of AC4 and going, huh? What? This looks worse. But I mean, Knack and Resogun, to me, I'm sure
Knack
like
is not worth. Knack is definitely not worth what it costs.
But
Resogun, I mean, Resogun's a free game for PS.
But it's not a free game.
It's $15.
It's $15.
Downloadable.
But it's downloadable. But my point isn't the cost. My point isn't even. I'm not even talking about quality of games here. All I'm talking about is graphical difference. And to me, to the uneducated eye, I don't see anything in either of those except maybe the pants textures in Knack.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
I could say, oh, wow, this is next gen. This I couldn't do. Now, probably in reality, the character of Knack, given that it's made up of all these particles, couldn't be done. But that doesn't stand out.
Or at least not done as effectively. I think that's a big part of it.
Right, but that doesn't jump out at me.
But
the only thing that jumps out at me is
game
Killzone.
Design, though, and a lot of, and I would agree with a lot of the reviews that have come out about the PS4 that have said that it's a great console, but the games just aren't there yet. So wait until the spring, and unless you need to be an early adopter, wait until the spring, and same thing. And the same thing was said for the Xbox One. Wait until the spring till Destiny and Titanfall and Watch Dogs all come out.
I mean, those are
and
the big
then
three.
Buy.
I mean, those
figure out where your friends are going to be.
Right. Well, or if you want to play Titanfall or not.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, really, just figure out how much you care about playing Titanfall. Because that, at this point,
I
Microsoft
hope
has a very key exclusive.
I hope I don't end up with a Xbox One as well.
Well, how much do you want to play Titanfall? By
Yeah,
the
see, that's
folks, what made Call of Duty?
well, if you're playing Titanfall, then that's the thing. Like, if I have friends that are going to play Titanfall
But I'm
on,
not going to play Titanfall. I mean, I'm the bad again. It's
but
a first-person game. I'm not going to play it.
right, but if I have friends that are going to play it though, and that's where the community is, then yes, of course I'll probably think about buying an Xbox One. But if I can play Destiny and be satisfied on my PS4 with the community, then that's what I'm going to do as well.
Well, they get talked about as if they're interchangeable, and they're not quite. I mean, yes, they are both futuristic first-person shooters made by people famous for making first-person shooters.
No, they're not interchangeable, but I also would argue that the most important thing about them that people will enjoy them for different reasons. They're not the same game, and they
No,
should not be.
but I kind of going back on what I just said, like they're both first-person shooters made by folks famous for making first-person shooters with an always online component.
Right.
Where with a blending of multiplayer and single player into one seamless experience. They're both that thing. So, while one has this really cool mech mechanic, and the other thing is like future steampunk and made by the folks what made Halo, in many ways they are similar, and they are certainly riffing on a similar idea. In the way that Battlefield and Call of Duty are not the same game, but they are
But they're very similar.
But they are riffing on a similar idea.
Right. Yeah. I agree with that analogy.
Call of Duty has much more focus on a single player story. Battlefield, that is mostly an afterthought. Battlefield is all about the 64-person online battles. Call of Duty is about shooting 16 of your friends. But in the end, it is just about shooting your friends.
Or your favorite online douche bros.
Or your favorite online douche bros. So, I mean, I walk away, and I say this on the stream too, like, I'm waiting to be impressed. It's not that I don't think the hardware isn't capable of impressing me. Hardware has come a long way in 8 years, right? And so, you have an amazing increase in RAM and graphics and there's so much potential wrapped up in these systems, and they're both based on the x86 architecture, so it's going to be a lot easier to develop for them in theory. I'm not a developer, but that's what I understand. So given that, I think down the road we're going to see something.
Well,
Right now,
and I think that a lot of it's that these launch titles just are not that impressive. I think Watch Dogs, which is being developed for next gen, will be very impressive. And that was supposed to be a launch title, but it's not. It's not
Right.
a launch title.
the one I'm looking for next week's live stream is Forza 5.
Yeah, I'm surprised that there was just Sony couldn't get their act together and get a driving game out.
No, I mean they had a driving game, but it was cross-platform. They had Need for Speed Rivals,
Oh yeah. But
which apparently looks fine, but I mean,
yeah.
it's not a dedicated next-gen driving game. In fact, Sony is
better than
launching a
that.
driving game. Here's the dumbest thing. Sony's launching a driving game this year. In December. Guess what system it's for?
PS3.
PS3. GTA 6 is being launched. GTA, I keep doing that. Gran Turismo 6 is being launched in December as a PlayStation 3 exclusive with
Wait,
no
really?
current plans to port it to the PlayStation 4.
Well, that's like GTA. So there's this interesting thing where I have like GTA 5 for the PS3. I currently can't play GTA 5 for the PS3 because I sold my PS3 to pay for my PS4.
Yeah, you also screwed me on
Yeah.
Game of the Year considerations. So good job there.
You're welcome. Luckily, I have one that's underneath my coffee table right now that I hit.
But your saves aren't on it.
No, my saves aren't on it.
Did you
but-
back up your saves? You're an idiot.
Yeah.
You are an idiot. Also, Sony just needs native cloud syncing rather than tying that to PSN because
Which is really stupid if you want my honest opinion.
yes.
No, but so next gen hardware, yeah, it's not really next gen.
No, the hardware is the games.
As far as the games that are available for it, so we can't really Killzone is next gen, and that's why I'm trying to play more Killzone because it's actually very visually appealing and it's taking advantage of a lot of the mechanics of the next gen, and like it uses of all the games, it's the only one that uses a touchpad. It's
Yeah.
the only one that does these things. And so it feels more like a game that was designed for this system.
Yeah. What I
Um,
haven't seen yet from a game, and not counting the ones that have been announced, because I'm going to explain what I mean by this in a second. I haven't seen a new game mechanic that has been made possible by the new hardware.
I agree with
So
that.
right now, Killzone looks next gen because it has better graphics, but it's still fundamentally a first-person shooter with segregated single player and multiplayer. With the I'm not saying it's a bad first-person shooter. The reviews have been middling, kind of in the 70s, which it's a good game. I'm not
Call of Duty good.
Call of it is, if this was directly comparable, it is as good as Call of Duty Ghost. Um, but they're not doing anything fundamentally new. The new stuff is what's coming, particularly with Titanfall and Destiny, with this blending of online and single player gaming into one seamless, no load time experience.
Right.
And I think that's the new
can't
mechanic.
wait.
I think it's going to be.
Can't wait.
And that's going to be awesome. And then you have Watch Dogs, which is talking about kind of a no load time world, no loading screens.
And you can pop in and out of other people's games, which is fascinating.
Yeah, but you can do that in Demon Souls. That's been on the PC for donkey's years.
Well, yeah, but it's easy to dismiss things by saying, "Oh, well, that's been on the PC for forever." Whatever.
But this blending of online and multiplayer and single player into one unified experience isn't totally new, but it is basically new. Right?
Yeah.
That's the thing. You can say, well, World of Warcraft, but it's basically turning all of these into an MMO.
Right,
without
but
a
World of
subscription
Warcraft is also not available on a console
No, and it's also
because
hugely, deliberately graphically limited, and it's an entirely different thing. I guess it's technically there's sort of a single player to it. Same with Knights of the Old Star Wars: The Old Republic.
Yeah,
but again,
you had that right. Knights of the Old Republic.
Star Wars: The Old Republic is the MMO.
Is that right?
Yes, I think so.
I got invited to that. I'd never played the.
But anyways, it's a heavily single player focused MMO. But I haven't seen. I'm waiting to see these new mechanics that are made possible. Forza claims they have some of it with their what do they call? Oh God, drivatars. Yes, drivatars. Not drive guitars.
Okay.
Drive-atars instead
For
of
those of you that are on the
avatars.
audio, I air guitared.
Air guitar. What drive-atar is like, it is doing cloud processing to learn your driving style and then be able to better compete against you.
Oh, interesting.
And so that's kind of a new Gen E mechanic that at least hasn't been in previous Forza games. And Xbox 360 does not have the online integrated architecture like Xbox One does.
You'll like this. The PlayStation is currently feeling neglected, and it keeps popping up and saying, "To start operation with your voice, say PlayStation."
You look.
Feeling neglected.
I just got rid of a yellow Labrador. You have your own yellow Labrador.
Hang on. I'm gonna turn off the PS4. PlayStation. Power. Turn off PS4. Made it go away.
So we've strayed into gameplay a little bit already, but we'll kind of move on to a jars segment, just another info segment, and talk kind of more in depth about
I need my jar.
Talk more in depth about kind of our actual experience with these games. So Jimmy, let's break this down game by game. Moving from worst to best. We don't assign review scores. We don't give things numbers.
No, because numbers are a flawed mechanic. Because nothing scores below a 5.
No, they do, and when they do, it's bad. For instance, Knack. It seems to be universally.
We give Knack a negative score.
Generally speaking, no. But we can give it a 1.
Yeah, no, knack is definitely the worst because, and you will, I'm sure, agree with me on this. It is like a game mechanic from the 90s,
Oh no, it's
except
much worse than that.
worse. Right, because in the 90s you at least had an excuse.
Well,
Um,
okay, so it's basically Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for the NES, but more depressing. Okay,
be back. You talk. I'll be back.
so Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for the Nintendo Entertainment System is a brawler, right? You walk from one end of the screen to the other and you bash the crap out of things. All Knack does is take that and add in some 3D platforming. So instead of walking from side to side, you're mostly walking from back to front and occasionally jumping over some things. And then you smash the crap out of enemies with a couple different attacks, and then you keep going through these almost entirely linear levels until the level ends. Now, there is theoretically some sense of progression. So Knack gets bigger as you bash enemies.
And you feel so much more powerful when you get bigger.
And you do. But then, at scripted points, you become smaller again.
Well, and you only get larger and smaller when they decide that it's time for you to get larger or smaller. You actually have no control. So, like, let's say you're able to fight particularly well and not get any damage. Well, then you don't actually get any bigger when you find certain... Because it's like you find these gem things and they make you bigger, but you have to find a boatload of them to get actually bigger. And they very carefully control when you get them.
And so
I'm just like a puppet, and I hate that.
Well, if you actually think about what Knack is a sentient artifact that gets co-opted to fight somebody else's war. It's deeply troubling. It's not presented as troubling, but it is deeply troubling.
It's a children's game.
But it's just a deeply...
Presumably it is a children's game.
No, sure. I mean, I guess. But Skylanders is a much better children's game that will also make a lot more money by selling you plastic crap.
Is this a Disney franchise?
No, that's Disney Infinity, which also will do the same thing and sell you plastic crap.
Because it's all about the plastic crap.
Well, I don't know if I've talked about this here or not. I actually kind of like that mechanic because I would have loved the idea of my toys coming alive in a video game, and both Skylanders and Disney Infinity understand this market well enough to make the toys of a decent quality so you could actually play with them outside of the game as action figures.
You know what we can thank for this, right?
Who?
Webkins.
Yeah, I mean, this is essentially the evolution of Webkins. I had a Webkin when I was in, 6th grade. Didn't care. I think it was a freshman. Whenever I think it was maybe a freshman.
Yeah, I would say it was more recent than that.
I think it was in high school.
An old fart. I mean,
but I had a Webkin because I thought it was hilarious. But I actually kind of like this idea of your toys coming to life in a video game. And since the toys aren't crap, I'm actually I don't hate that idea. I think it's a money hole, and I think they deliberately make it a money hole. But
parents have nothing to do but throw money into holes for their children.
Well, no, and you can spend up to $400 on Skylanders. Guess what? Teach your kid self-control. But even still, it's not like you had that plastic figure and then you throw it away. Like, it has play value beyond just the video game. And sure, they're kind of expensive, but you get 2 modes of play. And I like that idea. It could be cheaper, but I like that idea of 2 modes of play. And even Disney Infinity has an architecture where you can have a sandbox mode where you can just build crazy things and be creative. So I think they're actually doing some really interesting things. And this is, if I was a kid today, I would be totally into Infinity and Skylanders.
So into it, not into it, you're into it?
I'm into it. And it's hard. I actually have to resist buying it now at the age of 27. Every time I'm in Walmart, I'm like, it's right there. I could buy it.
That's how I feel about Game Boy games.
Yeah, it's anyways, off topic. So Knack, kids game or not, kids games don't have to be crappy.
Yeah.
They just don't.
We played it because we felt like we had to, and it's the worst. I'm not going to get probably $20. I'd be surprised if I get $20 from GameStop out of this.
Yeah, because who the hell wants it?
The biggest waste of... Okay, this is my review of Knack. It is the biggest waste of $60 you could possibly have. You could take $60 and light it on fire and use it for warmth,
Oh, I don't know about all that. That seems a bit
and it would
extreme.
probably be.
No, because Knack isn't broken. Knack works.
It works. It's
It
just
is a
a
functional
crappy
game.
game.
It is a crappy game. But it is a functional game that has a mechanic that functions.
Fine, okay, the score from 0 to 10, I'll give it a 2 because it's not fundamentally broken.
Sure. I mean, I'd probably give it a
It's just a
3.
stupid game.
I'd probably give it a 3 or a 4. Again, not a good game. So next up,
Yeah,
I guess
less than 5.
next up in order of quality is the PS4 port of Assassin's Creed 4.
Yeah, which is really sad because I mean, AC4 for the PS3, and I know you for the Xbox 360. I mean, it was very, very beautiful, and like they stressed the like leaves and the storm,
And it looks
and
good.
and it looks good. But when they ported it to the PS4, all that texture just went to hell in a handbasket.
Well,
Like
it looks like they took it into Photoshop and clicked sharpen a bunch, and then
sharpen,
sharpen until it just looks like garbage, and then exported it. That's
Yeah.
what it looks like to me.
Let's see if I can do some screen because you can do screen captures on the PS4. I'm gonna see if I can do some screen captures of because it's Edward Kenway in particular. Like he has this like his hair is really like wiry.
And it's
Um,
like it's like his face has the wrong texture of it. No human is that texture.
Well, and I think that it might have been that okay. So I think that part of it is that the PS4 is actually 1080p for the gameplay, whereas I know that the PS3 is not. The
Sure.
PS3 is 720, if
Yeah,
that.
it is
I
720.
think it's 720. But anyways, it could just be that the change in resolution that they said, oh, okay, well we can just upconvert. So they upconverted the resolution, and the upconvert didn't go well.
Well, that sounds lazy.
Um, Ubisoft, you had to do this right. You delayed Watch Dogs for this.
Well, no, I mean, no, they did. I mean,
They
delayed
delayed
Watch Dogs for
the
this. This was this game is too big to fail. They could not put this thing out. And I
No,
think
no,
it,
that's
you
true.
know, it certainly is going to be
It's
something.
still a good game, okay? So like,
I'm going to argue for it in our Game of the Year considerations, but specifically the
on the
PS3
PS4,
and
well, yeah,
the PS3 and the Xbox 360 versions, which
Right,
I
I'll
think
accept that.
are certainly in at least my top 10 games of the year.
oh, definitely, I agree with that. But I think
has-
that the PS4 is possibly in our like worst 10 games.
Or
of the
most disappointing. I wouldn't say worst. It's still going to be a
worst.
fun game to play.
Right. The story is still there. It still runs like all of the things. It's still everything that you love about Assassin's Creed 4.
And it
It's
runs
just
and it runs at 60 frames a second now, but that doesn't make up for the piss poor textures.
right. And so, really, all we can say is that we hope that by the next AC or Assassin's Creed game actually being developed on next gen, that it'll look not like crap.
Well, right, and then they'll just down convert it for the 360 and the PS3 if they do that at all.
So no, and I think they probably will. I think we'll have one more generation of Assassin's Creed and Call of Duty on previous generation, but it'll just be down converted, and then they won't do it again.
Right. So, it's a good game. Just don't play it on next gen because it is actually a worse experience, even if there is a better frame
Now,
rate.
you can do so if you have a PS4 or if you have a PS3 and a PS4 for $10. It's like this weird thing you get. I haven't done it yet. I've just bought the PS4 edition, but I'm gonna do it for FIFA, and I'll report on actually the Thursday, our next full real show, how it goes. But the idea is you're supposed to be able to load in the game into your PS3 and then buy the online version for $10 for the PS4, and then just download it on the PS4 as a downloadable.
So sure, I mean, if you have both, play it on the PS3, and if you're curious, pay $10 to see it on the PS4.
Yeah, gives you one more game to play on the PS4. That's basically what my thing is.
So I guess next up in order of quality, I think you would agree would be Killzone, because you think Resogun wins.
No, I'd say Resogun.
Okay, so Resogun.
Actual quality, I think Killzone is probably the best.
So Resogun is essentially a next-gen PS4 version of Defender, the arcade classic. And I don't actually mean that.
Classic for a reason.
Well, no, it's a classic. I don't like Resogun, but it is not actually Resogun's fault. Resogun is really good at being what it is. I don't like Defender.
I
So I'm
like
not
Defender.
gonna like. I don't like frantic and Twitch-based arcade games, which I realize is like most of arcade games from the late 70s to the mid 80s. That's not what I like. I
You
like
don't
long
like
form.
Pac-Man?
I'm okay with Pac-Man. Yeah, I had a lot of fun with Pac-Man.
That's Pac-Man's kind of. I mean, it's different, obviously, but it's a similar
I
concept
just
as Twitch, and.
Yeah, I guess I don't like these kind of side-scrolling shooters.
Okay, that's fair.
I liked the brawlers. I like Pac-Man. Those kind of like maze hunt games. Of course, I like all the driving games. So I mean, when I was in the arcades as a kid, I was playing like San Francisco Rush and Rush 2049, and Metal Slug, and I wasn't really playing
Slug. Yep.
Defender or Asteroids and I guess Metal Slug is more of a brawler. And I think that's more what I wasn't playing like 1942 or anything like that. So it's just not my kind of arcade classic. But
But I loved Defender, and that's my genre, and so yeah, of course I really enjoy playing Resogun. I'm not going to say it's next gen.
those particles in the explosions probably couldn't
Well,
be done.
and there are certain parts of it where like it just gets ridiculous, the amount of stuff that is going on at the same time, and there's no lag.
Yeah.
So that's very impressive.
It is a cool looking game. There's like some dubstep techno stuff going on in the underbeats and the explosions, and it is a cool game to watch. I played it enough to know that it controls the way it's supposed to. The
And you
handling
watch
is
me play it more.
well, but the handling is very tight. It's exactly what it should be. I know that I can't give it a fair consideration because it's just not my kind of game.
Yeah,
But
but I would definitely still say that Killzone is the best.
So what? Switching to Killzone as a topic, what makes it that for you?
Um, First off, Killzone and Resogun fundamentally are just Resogun is an analogy of a game I would play on my phone,
Sure, absolutely.
except I can play it on my television with a controller. So I I have difficulty giving that kind of a game my top spot is one of the things. But the other thing is that Killzone is just the lighting effects that they've done, the textures. Um, it's very impressive.
Beyond
And
the graphics, what sense? Which we've talked about some. What sense do you get of that story?
it seems like a good story. I'm still not that far into it. Basically, where we were I've replayed through to that point.
Okay, because we played a lot of Killzone.
It was. I mean, it's good.
I even played
it's
a
about
little
2
bit
hours.
of Killzone.
It's about 2 hours of Killzone. It's the world is very open, and you can kind of within. Okay, so let me rephrase that.
It's
That's
not
not
an
actually
open
true.
world.
It's it's open in that the maps are very large, where they drop you, but you definitely have very specific objectives. It's
So
not
like
open world.
like Halo,
No.
where there's multiple ways to where you're in a broad landscape where there's multiple ways to approach an objective.
Okay, yes, in later versions of I'm thinking of because the last version of Halo I actually played the storyline in was Halo 3.
Okay.
And you still had a lot of very linear, okay, go this way, go this way, go this way. And then okay, here's a base, you can figure out how you get into the base. But here it's very much the go find it, figure out what you're doing. And there's some very subtle indicators of the direction you're supposed to go. I prefer the BioShock Infinite mechanic where you press the button and it says go this direction.
Yeah.
It doesn't tell you, oh, you are this many meters from your target.
Yeah, BioShock I think works harder to be organic about that. So I've heard one of the complaints I've heard about in reading a bunch of reviews of Killzone is that there just aren't that many enemy encounters, that you go way too long without shooting dudes. Is that something you've run into?
Yeah, and I'd also say that they're very deliberate about, okay, now you're going to shoot people, and the music like picks up, and you're going to be, battle mode, and then the music goes away, and you're like, oh, I guess there's no more dudes to shoot. And part of it is that they have this mechanic where you have this little drone thing, and you hack the alarm with the drone, and once you hack the alarm, the enemies stop coming for some strange reason. It doesn't make any sense.
It's like, oh, the alarm's, it's not a problem anymore.
Yeah, no, I think that, and it keeps popping up and says, if you don't turn off the alarm, the enemies keep coming. And I kind of said, well, yeah, but that's fun. That I get to kill wave after wave after wave after wave of them. So, yeah, I would agree that there should be more. And also, one of the things that I like, that I kind of like about Killzone is the very personal melee, which is also one of the things I liked about The Last of Us, that there's this very visceral attack for a melee attack as opposed to the Halo where you're like, huh, huh, huh. That's the whole Halo attack. That's melee, no matter what. Whereas,
Sure.
in Killzone, there's, you break the guy's neck, you cut his throat, you whatever. There's a variety of different ways that you can kill them with your melee attack, um, which is nice. But I feel like they don't encourage it, and there's also no stealth. And I like games that encourage stealth,
Sure.
or not even encourage, where I'm rewarded for being stealthy.
That makes sense.
Give me a bunch like in Dishonored. Give me a bunch of guys that I have to get by, and let me decide whether or not I'm going to attack full front, which is what I often do, or if I'm like, yeah, I don't feel like attacking these guys. I'm just going to try to sneak around the outside.
Well, I think that's what games like Assassin's Creed and Splinter Cell is starting to do as well, are doing to this kind of stealth genre, that you can do it stealthy, but now you can just stab dudes or shoot dudes, depending on the era that you're in.
Right.
And it gives you kind of a variety of options rather than like the old school kind of thief kind of thing where like if you get caught, it's a fail state. And when I run into those kind of missions in Assassin's Creed now, I'm like, oh, this feels old. Why can't I just fight them?
You mean the tail them missions? I
Yeah,
hate
mostly
missions.
the tail them missions.
I'm gonna go replay all of them, and just because it gives you a little rating thing, I'm just gonna rate them all 1 star.
Yeah, yeah.
So hopefully they never ever do them ever again.
Well, but I think they've decided it's a core mechanic of the series.
Which is stupid. I hate it.
Because it's one of the few mechanics that's, besides stabbing dudes, that's left from Assassin's Creed, or the original one.
Eagle vision.
Yeah, no, that's another one that's drastically changed. I guess it's sort of starting to change back. Now it can see through walls, which is so much better.
Yeah, yeah. You tag a dude and then you could see them walk around and.
Yeah, because you used to just fail the tailing missions because you'd get more than 20 seconds away from them and they'd be like, you failed. And now you can see them through walls, and so it's much easier to tail them.
See, the strategy on the tailing missions was always just get on the roof.
Yeah.
Because then you can jump around and keep an eye on them and stay out of sight, and you just had to make sure you assassinated the dudes on the roof before they saw you.
Yeah. Stab the guards.
Stab the guards. Use was one of them you had the poison throwing knives?
Poison dart. You had poison darts in AC3,
right.
And you had some sort of poison mechanic with Ezio as well.
Yeah, with Ezio there was some poison mechanic, which was awesome because you could just poison them from afar and just walk away, and
that was my favorite. I love the ranged.
And they start thrashing, and
I love the ranged weapons in Assassin's Creed because it makes stealth so much easier.
I did also enjoy that. This my last Assassin's Creed thing. When they added that mechanic for you recruit people, and then you could have this. Oh, I really don't feel like fighting this massive group of people. Hey, people, come attack them.
Or
you
my
just
favorite.
Watch assassins come from the roofs and just assassinate people. And
I liked the arrow storm. Right, just hold down a button and everyone dies.
Not at the bird and people
die everywhere. People die.
So Killzone is definitely the best of the PS4, but Trey, you don't have a PS4, so what have you been playing recently?
So it was a momentous day today. I finally got Persona 4 Golden out of my life. Um, my final playtime on that game was 82 hours and 47 minutes.
Got to be joking me.
Nope. And that's not the longest playthrough I've ever heard of. I played 82 hours and 47 minutes of that game. I finally beat it today.
Is that a PC game?
No, it's was originally launched as an RPG on the PlayStation 2. And I played it on the PlayStation Vita. And so I played specifically
it's available downloadable on the PS4. That'd give me something to do. I'm actually going to look this up while you talk about it.
It might be. So I finally beat it. It's kind of, it's a game I've always wanted to play. It's a JRPG. It's a Japanese RPG. It's definitely one of those. But it has this kind of cool storyline where you're like an everyday teenager in an everyday city of Inaba. And then there's this kind of
very Japanese
alternate world that's inside the television. That's where you go through and you battle the bosses. And so it's mostly not like magical creatures in the real world, but like there's this magical world you go fight in, and then you live in the real world. And then the relationships you build in the real world help improve your ability to fight in the television world. And so you spend a lot of your time in the real world building relationships with like the people in your party and the people in your community. And if you max out those relationships, you're able to form new personas, which are like Pokemon, that then help you fight. Which led to me feeling really guilty about something.
Pray tell, Trey. What did you feel so guilty about? Persona 4.
So my understanding, because I played the Vita version, the Persona 4 Golden, which adds on a bunch of content, which is great value. Okay. You get your $40 worth on it, and even if you've played Persona 4 before, there's a lot of new stuff in there. But the walkthrough I was using to help me along the way was a PS2 walkthrough, and so it seemed that you could form romantic relationships with all of the young women, and that would just help make sure that you've maxed out the relationship, and you would never get caught. That there wasn't
you could be an e-slut.
You could become an e-slut without there being any sort of punishment mechanic, as far as I could tell. So one of the things that appears to be new with Persona 4 Golden is at some point you get caught with your e-sluttiness. Which I didn't see coming. And so my character, who I oddly enough named after myself, had four girlfriends going, three of whom were in like my fighting party, my investigation team. So I was dating three of them. I was dating Chie, Rise, and Yukiko. And this other girl from drama club. Which, this just starts to sound a lot like my high school life. Especially when you add in, and the girl from drama club. And so, on Valentine's Day, what happens is, all of the girls you are dating, who you have taken back to your room and had a fade to blackout moment with, which is their make-out sex mechanic, all the girls that you have done that with, will then bring you a special chocolate to present you. And then you're supposed to go on a date with them. But here's the catch. Here's the catch. You can only go on a date with one girl. And so this happens at Christmas too, but there's no getting caught. It's just you only invite one over. At Valentine's Day, you have to have a one-on-one conversation with every girl you don't go on a date on and tell them that you're not going to go on a date with them. And these scenes are voice acted, complete with like passive-aggressive, like, I know you're lying to me, but if this is really important to you, I understand. But really, subtext, I don't. And so basically, you have to in-face dumped 3 digital women today. And the scenes were so well written and so well voice acted that I still feel unsettled about my digital sluttiness, that I was pretty sure I wasn't going to get caught. And then I got caught, and I felt bad. And I felt like my 16-year-old self, who also got caught having multiple girlfriends. I guess it's a strange admission for a podcast, but I got caught having multiple girlfriends, and like, I was having flashbacks of when that happened to me in high school because of how well written this game was. So I felt like really bad for being an e-dick. I got busted by my girlfriends.
You have no one to blame but yourself, Trey.
I do. So I chose Yukiko rather than Rise, who's the one my high school self would have picked. I picked Yukiko, the more serious kind of contemplative person rather than the pop star. So I was proud of myself about that, and I had consistently chosen Yukiko.
Would Sydney be proud of your choice?
I think Sydney would like Yukiko. I don't think Sydney would like Rise. Look, it was weird, and I felt bad, but
I can read your your text if you want me to.
Yeah, please read my text. It's a series of 3 texts.
Trey texted me at 1:40 this afternoon Central Time and said, "Game just punished me for having 3 girlfriends. Damn, this is too realistic. I have to have passive-aggressive breakup conversations on Valentine's Day with all but one. I feel guilty about causing pain to digital women. This is a realistic simulation of high school."
Yeah, it's just it put me back in this place of like, oh crap, I did this in high school and the same thing happened. Which, yeah, it's kind of embarrassing for me. But there's a larger gameplay message here, which is, this is a really good game.
And then I told you not to be a whore. I mean, that was basically how that went.
Which is kind of what happened. But this is a really good game. And it sustains the narrative for all 80 hours of my gameplay. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm glad it's out of my life, just not because I wanted it to be over, but because there's just so much I'm supposed to be playing that like came out in 2013 and not something that was re-released in 2012 but originally came out for the PS2. That's not where I am in my life.
So what you're telling me is if and when I get I'm going to get a Vita. This is not really an if. When I get a Vita, I need to download this game and sink at least 80 hours of my life into it.
I don't know. I don't know if you've ever played a JRPG.
I have not.
Have you played Pokemon?
Okay, no, that's true. Yes, I have.
So close. It's kind of like Pokemon. I mean, it's a JRPG. It's kind of like Pokemon. And there's like a collection mechanic where you get personas and then you can
gotta catch them all.
Evolve your. There is a compendium. Pokedex.
Please tell me someone says gotta catch them all.
No one says that, but you do get an award for catching them all.
I'm okay with that.
There's a trophy for catching them all.
I cannot tell you how many hours of Pokemon I burned trying to catch them all.
But there's only 100 rather than 151. So we're going to need a song for all 100 persona. Anyways, that's in no way relevant. It's a great, I thoroughly recommend it. It's one of the, the best experiences I've had on the Vita, and I've actually beat a bunch of games on the Vita. If you have a PS2 lying around and have not played Persona 4, and
I do have a PS2 lying around at home, like in PC.
Yeah, I recommend it. It's great. Next, I'm gonna get my hands on a PS3 and dive myself into Ni no Kuni, because in for a penny, in for a pound. But on that note, it is time to end. Thank you very much for joining us on this kind of special PS4 / embarrassed Trey about being an e-slut episode of Tech
You should be embarrassed about being an e-slut.
I am embarrassed.
You have no one to blame but yourself.
Thank you so much for joining us. If you have any feedback about this show, my e-sluttiness, or anything else,
especially his e-sluttiness,
especially my e-sluttiness, podcast at textlastcall.com, facebook.com/textlastcall, pinterest.com/textlastcall, or at textlastcall on the Twitters. However you find us, we'll be seeing you on the interwebs.